The Game of Thrones Season 8 trailer has dropped, and there is a lot of new footage. What hints did we get about Season 8, and what predictions can we make about what's going to happen? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. This video is brought to you by my excellent Patreon community. If you'd like to support this channel, or get access to some patron-only content, please do consider visiting patreon.com/InDeepGeek. There's also a link in the description. The Season 8 trailer for Game of Thrones is action-packed, with almost all of its content coming from the first half of the season. There are no reveals here about how the war against the Army of the Dead is resolved, or what happens at the end of it all at King's Landing, or some other stuff that we'll get onto at the end of this video. But there is lots here about the long-trailed Battle for Winterfell and the Golden Company, and a few other juicy hints, so let's get into it. And so you know, we'll be breaking this down according to the order things will probably happen in the series, rather than the order the trailer put them in. First up, we have Ed, Tormund and Beric walking down some dark corridor. There isn't much context here, but the important point is that Tormund and Beric escaped Eastwatch by the Sea. We last saw them there as the Night King, atop Viserion, brought that section of the wall down. They were scrabbling for safety. Ed, meanwhile, was at Castle Black. He's now Lord Commander of the much-depleted Night's Watch, so it appears that Tormund and Beric have made their way to Castle Black. This is probably just a small respite for them. We don't know the Night King's strategy for taking the north, but while he was north of the wall he seemed to be about moving slowly, destroying everything and raising the dead afterwards. In other words, he won't go straight to Winterfell. Castle Black, the Last Hearth and the Carhold, where young Ned Umber and Alice Karstark were sent back in Season 7, remember them, will be first in line. The first 2 episodes of Season 8 will be the Army of the Dead showing its strength before rounding on Winterfell. But let's backtrack a little, because you will remember that at the end of Season 7, Jon and Dany agreed to journey to Winterfell the slow way, together. They didn't want Dany and the dragons arriving well before Jon and frightening the people of Winterfell. So we see this great shot of the two of them riding with their army of Unsullied and Dothraki through what looks like Wintertown to Winterfell. There hasn't been much focus on Wintertown in the show, but it's a settlement just outside Winterfell that houses the people of the North during winters. The fact that they show it here suggests that it may play a part in Season 8. A sensible first move if the Army of the Dead are marching on Winterfell would be to bring everyone there into Winterfell. With a population of about 15,000, that's a lot of people to move. Anyway, the dragons seem not to have got the message about not frightening the denizens of Winterfell before Jon and Dany arrive, and we see them here buzzing over the walls with Sansa looking on. There's also the footage we saw earlier in the teaser trailer of Arya looking up and smiling at the dragons, while the small folk panic behind her. Of course, the welcome for Jon and Dany will not be a smooth one. Yes, everyone will be glad to see some firepower in the war against the Night King, but the Northern Lords were very clear in Season 7 that Jon was not to bend the knee to Dany, and he did. And Bran was very clear that Jon must know about his true parents, which means telling him that he is not Ned's son, and that Dany is his aunt. It's all going to be rather awkward. It's probable that the pep talk Bran gives in the voiceover is during this conversation with Jon, because he won't care about social niceties or incest or anything like that. He will care about magic and fate and who is supposed to do what. So we hear him saying that everything you did brought you where you are now, where you belong. It's a rather reductive view of fate, but it's probably Bran's way of saying that Jon should just suck it up and fight for the living as he was always going to. When Jon does hear the news of who he really is, he is likely to go, as he so often does, into deep introspection. We see him here in front of the weirwood tree that Ned and the other Starks go to so often, and here he is in the crypts looking pensive. The question is, whose statue is he looking at? Based purely on its position and the context, I would guess that this is Lyanna's. I think he has heard the news about who his parents were and gone down to his mother's tomb. This will be a huge moment for him. Everything he thought about who he was is wrong, and he's probably just realised quite how much Ned sacrificed to save him. Oh, and the woman he loves turns out to be his aunt. Talking of which, Dany comes to find him. She is also looking sad and empathetic. Perhaps they will try to make this work somehow, but both of them know that there is a greater threat looming. They will probably park a proper discussion of the implications while they prepare for the looming battle. We then cut to Jon's rousing yet typically low-key speech. The army of the dead, he says, don't tire, stop, or feel. This will be a grueling battle. And humanity seems to have only 3 weapons that work. Valyrian steel, of which there is precious little. Jon, Arya, Jaime, Brienne and Sam appear to have Valyrian steel blades on the show, but that's it. Dragonglass, which Jon has ordered to be mined from under Dragonstone, and will probably see a shipment arrive early on in the season. And fire, of which we see a lot in this trailer. Gendry is in the forge. It's possible to read too much into this, but the man he was apprenticed to as a blacksmith, Tobbo Mott, knew the secret of reforging Valyrian steel. Did he teach Gendry? Perhaps. We see Arya holding a piece of dragonglass. She seems very confident here, saying that she knows death, knows it has many faces. This is a clear callback to her training with the Faceless Men and their worship of the many-faced god, and is looking forward to seeing this one. Her confidence here is in stark contrast to how we see her later on, running scared and injured, but we'll come on to that in a moment. Davos is walking the walls, looking serious. He isn't really a fighter, but needs must, and the defence of Winterfell seems to be taking shape at this point. Missandei and Grey Worm share a kiss before the battle. Will they see each other again? Perhaps not. Jorah appears in full armour in front of the Dothraki and Unsullied, apparently outside the walls. This seems, on the face of it, to be quite a bold plan. Winterfell has strong, high walls. Surely it would be better to stay behind them and utilise that advantage rather than just take to the field. Anyway, we see Brienne, Pod and some Vale men also lining up. Perhaps they have a cunning plan. I hope so. We've been told that this episode, probably episode 3, took a lot of inspiration from the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. If it is half as good as that siege scene, it will be amazing TV. And there is a clear echo in the women, children and Varys sheltering in the crypts away from the fighting. Incidentally, that appears to be Gilly and her child in the background. Then we see an undead horse take the field, and the battle is joined. Whatever the plan, it doesn't seem to have gone well for the army of the living. The Hound is here surrounded by fire. His story arc is all about fire. As a child, he had his face thrust into a fire by his brother, the Mountain. Then he ran away from it in the Battle of the Blackwater, faced up to it when fighting Beric and his fiery sword, gazed into it to see a vision Thoros had, and now here he is once more in a war surrounded by it. I hope that this time he won't run away. Then we see Brienne fighting on the walls. If this is happening, then they really are in trouble. The dead have got past whatever defences lie outside of Winterfell and are now inside the walls. We get Jaime shouting. There's a voiceover of him saying that he promised to fight for the living and that he intends to keep that promise. This is almost certainly from just after he arrives at Winterfell, as he is trying to persuade a skeptical Dany or Sansa or Tyrion that he is on their side. He will also be bringing news that Cersei has betrayed them, but it is too late to worry about that. We'll get on to what Cersei is up to in a moment. Because then we really are into the fog of war. We see Jon running through a gate with some others, horses galloping, fires burning. Arya is swinging some kind of spear around, seemingly surrounded. She seems to escape from that, but is wounded, a nasty gash on her face. At which point we get a great juxtaposition of emotions in Arya. The trailer actually begins with her giving her cool speech about how au fait she is with death, but this shows her out of breath, bleeding, and apparently shaken. She is running through Winterfell, apparently trying to evade her pursuers. This is very telling. Ever since she left Braavos, Arya has appeared in control of her emotions, her abilities, and her sense of self, but here she appears not to be. The battle has shaken her. This is not going to plan. At which point we break away from Winterfell. I said at the start of this video that the trailer doesn't give away anything much at all about the second half of the season, and this is very obvious here. We don't see what happens at the end of the Battle of Winterfell. It's not going well, that much we can tell, but then the trailer cuts away. Who escapes? Who dies? We don't know from this trailer. Let's go instead to Cersei and her plans in King's Landing. You'll remember that she is double-crossing Dany and has sent Euron to pick up the Golden Company from Essos. Now, the Golden Company have a long and really quite relevant history in the books, but I suspect that here they will be used largely as just another sellsword company. Euron has brought them across. This is probably Cersei waiting for them on the battlements of the Red Keep, and here she is receiving them in the throne room. This is a long shot, but that looks like Cersei on the throne, Qyburn on the right, Euron on the front right, and Harry Strickland in the middle, wearing gold. I say Harry Strickland because in the books he is the leader of the Golden Company, and we know that they have cast a character to be the leader of the Golden Company, so, well, it's probably him. We also have a shot of Cersei, drinking wine as usual and almost smiling. It's easy to believe that her plan, which probably involves securing the south while Dany is otherwise occupied, is going well about halfway through the season. Dany really does have more important things to deal with right then, but there's nothing about Cersei and her apparent pregnancy. As always, there are a few shots in the trailer that could take place any time. The dragons here seem to be flying through snowy canyons. This looks more like north of the wall than north per se, but is probably just from them ranging far and wide while Dany, Jon and co march slowly up to Winterfell. There's also this very exciting clip of Dany and Jon walking towards Drogon and Rhaegal. The dragons have clearly been eating, and the lack of very heavy snow suggests they aren't in the far north. But the important point here is the imagery. Dany and Drogon, and Jon and Rhaegal, the dragon named after his father. I am still confident that we will see Jon ride Rhaegal before the season is out. We see Tyrion looking up at something. It's not clear what, but the jump cut to a dragon breathing fire is clearly from a different scene. The lighting is all different. There has been some teasing about Tyrion being burned by a dragon, but this is just the showrunners playing with us. We do not see any confirmation of it here. Finally, what's missing? Well, Theon and Yara to start with. Theon set off after Euron, and Euron clearly made it back to Westeros, but we know no more than that. Sam only appears for a second, as does Varys. Neither are really made for fighting, so they're probably not great trailer material, but they will both have a lot of plot to get through in Season 8. There also wasn't much about Bran and his inevitable mind war with the Night King, or what happens when people head back down to King's Landing, as they surely must. In short, this is a trailer for Game of Thrones Season 8, Episodes 1 to 3. It doesn't tell us everything, but I, for one, can't wait. What do you think? What did I miss? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to support In Deep Geek or get access to some exclusive patron-only content, please consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/indeepgeek. There's also a link in the description. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.